Alright guys, this is going to be a review for your quiz tomorrow. Your quiz is over quadratic function. How about I spell correctly? Quadratics quiz. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, these are the few things that you need to know for your quiz. You need to know this basic form and what all these different letters stand for. Your A is called A. It's like the coefficient, but we can't really call it a coefficient anymore because this is not a linear function. Your A determines whether it is narrow or wide. A narrow graph is going to have numbers larger than 1. And a wider graph is going to be a fraction or a decimal. Okay. Also, if I have a negative A, my parabola, instead of opening up like this, it becomes like this, to where it opens down. So the negative number would flip it over the x-axis. Your C value is going to be talking about how your graph shifts, either up or down. So from your parent function, it is either going to shift up or down. And that also depends on whether you have a positive or negative number. If I have a positive C, it's going to be up. If I have a negative C, it's going to shift down. And the C value, that number, just tells you how many places it's going to shift up and down on the y-axis. So here's our parent function. We need to know what it looks like. It goes through a vertex of 0, 0. Okay. And again, guys, you're going to have a calculator, so if you don't remember exactly what this looks like, just type it in, and you can always look at the table and see what's going on. So on your quiz, you're going to have a problem kind of like this, where they're going to give you an equation. You're going to need to be able to say the vertex, the axis of symmetry, and all these other fun stuff. So on the graph, if I have the graph of this, compared to how the parent function looks, since I have a negative C, the C value is a negative 6, it's going to shift down 6 places. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So my vertex here is actually 0, negative 6. Okay, so the C value can directly be placed as your y, and your vertex is always whenever x is 0. So I can do 0, 0, 0, negative 6, and I could look on your calculator and type it in and look at the table and get some other points. That way you can figure out what's going on. So I have x squared minus 6. Look at my table, and I can pick a point from there. That way I can plot, okay? So if you look on here, I have 1, negative 5, so I can do 1, down 5. And then I could do 2, down 2. But the problem with the table is it only gives you one side of your parabola. I know it's not perfect, but you know what I mean. So that's where the symmetrical pairs comes into play, okay? If I know one pair, you need to be able to say it's symmetric pair. The symmetric pair is just the exact opposite. Remember, your axis of symmetry is always going to be x equals 0. That's that invisible line that cuts your parabola in half. So if I have the line, if I have the point 1, negative 5 over here, that can be one of my pairs. It's one of my points. Its pair is negative 1, negative 5. You notice the only thing that's changing is your x value. Okay, your y value stays the exact same. Same thing over here. If I have 3, negative 2, its symmetric pair, that is the exact reflection, is negative 3, negative 2. So I'm only changing the x value. So be able to list some symmetric pairs and their partners. Axis of symmetry is always x equals 0 in this class because we're not shifting our parabolas left and right yet. Domain and range. Domain, always all real numbers. It's always going to cover every single x value. This parabola goes on forever. It's never going to stop at any point. So every x value is always going to be included. Your range is going to change depending on your vertex. It's going to change depending on your C value. So just like what we would do if this was a linear function, you can kind of mark your graph off and say, okay, my y values, where would my y values stop? Would I ever have any y values down here? No, because my graph does this. So I know my y values can never be less than negative 6, or y has to be greater than or equal to negative 6. Because it can be negative 6, negative 5, and keep going all the way forever, like these arrows said. Okay? So your quiz tomorrow is not hard. We make sure that you know all of these different things, what A and C stand for, what they do, be able to take an A and C value just from your equation. One last thing, if you have an equation like this and it asks you what number is A, remember that invisible 1 that's right there. So be able to say that your A value is 1. My C value for that equation is negative 6. Okay? Go study your notes. See you tomorrow, guys.